Hello and welcome to Cootz. Our today's topic is the emergency in Canada. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on 14th of February invoked the Emergencies Act to be used for the first time in the country in a bid to end the anti-vaccine mandate protests taking place across the country and blocking parts of the capital, Ottawa. Trudeau on Monday said that the protests and blockades were harming Canada's economy and putting the safety of the public at risk. We cannot and will not allow illegal and dangerous activities to continue, Trudeau said in a news conference, adding that the protests will pose serious challenges to law enforcement's ability to effectively enforce the law. Canadians have been protesting for almost 3 weeks against a vaccination rule that required truckers to be vaccinated in order to cross the Canada-US border or to be quarantined after returning. The protests have had an effect on Canada's economy as well as its relations with the US. On Sunday, Ambassador Bridge in Windsor, which is crucial for US-Canada trade, was reopened for commute after the police removed protesters blocking the bridge. Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada David Lametti said, "Over the past several weeks, illegal blockades and occupations have disrupted the peace in many communities across Canada and have hurt our economy. Today's declaration of a public order emergency is an extraordinary measure that is time limited and that will ensure that we restore peace in our community." Now let's know what is the Emergencies Act invoked in Canada. The Emergencies Act passed in 1988 is a law that can be used in case of national emergencies to take special temporary measures to ensure safety and security as well as give powers to the state to amend other acts. The Act defines a national emergency as a situation that is of urgent, critical, and temporary nature. It further states that a national emergency is to be considered if a situation puts the lives, health, or safety of Canadians at risk, and is of such proportions or nature as to exceed the capacity or authority of a province to deal with it. It is also to be considered an emergency if it threatens the ability of the Canadian government to maintain the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of Canada. The Act states that it can only be imposed if the situation cannot be dealt with through no other law in Canada. The Emergencies Act of Canada can be invoked in parts depending upon the emergencies. The Act covers 4 emergencies: public welfare emergency, public order emergency, war emergency, and international emergency. The part of the Emergencies Act invoked by Trudeau on Monday was public order emergency, which means an emergency that arises from threats to the security of Canada and that is so serious as to be a national emergency. Threats to the security under the public order emergency of the Emergencies Act include activities that support or directly lead to espionage and sabotage against Canada, activities that are detrimental to the country's interests, foreign influenced activities within or relating to Canada that are clandestine or deceptive in nature, activities that support or are directed towards acts of serious violence towards people or property for the purpose of achieving a political, religious, or ideological objective in Canada, and activities that lead to undermining or unlawfully overthrowing the constitutional system of the Canadian government using violence. Now, how does Canada's Emergencies Act affect the protesters? The Emergencies Act gives the state the power to prohibit or regulate the assembling of citizens that is expected to breach the peace, travel of Canadians to, from, or within specified areas, and use of a specific property by citizens. Other measures can be imposed by the government under the Act are securing protected areas and taking control or restoring and maintaining public spaces or services. The order also allows the government to impose a fine of up to $500 and imprisonment for up to 6 months of contravention of the orders of regulations under the Act by anyone. Minister of Public Safety Marco Mendicino said, "The authorities granted under the Emergencies Act will help end the illegal blockades and uphold the law. They are targeted, measured, temporary, and proportionate to the urgent circumstances facing our country. These authorities are part of a responsible and scalable approach and are entirely consistent with the Charter." Under the personal order emergency declared by Trudeau on Tuesday, the Canadian government will be freezing bank accounts of anyone linked to the protests without the need for any court order. Vehicle insurance of those involved in the protests can be suspended under the Act. The Act would also be giving more powers to the police to fine and imprison protesters. The police will now be able to seize vehicles, including trucks that have been used in the protests, and ban any protests that are unlawful in nature, said Canadian Justice Minister David Lametti, adding that the government will be banning demonstrations in specific areas like borders, airports, and Canada's capital city, Ottawa. Stating that the emergencies would not be useful to suspend the fundamental rights of the Canadians, Trudeau had also said that the measures would be time-constrained, reasonable and proportionate. Reiterating to his position regarding military deployment, Trudeau said it will not be taking place. Even tow truck companies will be forced to help the police in clearing protest sites in Ottawa as well as borders of Canadian cities like Cootz, Emerson, Alberta. Under the Act, the government will be widening terrorist financing rules regarding money laundering in order to cover cryptocurrencies and crowdfunding platforms that might be funding the protest. For more such content, don't forget to subscribe to Cootz.